Settle in, dear one, and let your thoughts drift like gentle clouds across a quiet sky. Tonight, we journey to a world of whispers and wishes, a place where magic stirs, not with a flourish, but with a soft, steady beat, much like your own heart as it slows for sleep. It is the story of Sophie and a remarkable wizard named Howl. Once upon a time, in a land touched by both everyday life and the shimmer of enchantment, there lived a young woman named Sophie. She worked diligently in her family's hat shop, a quiet and conscientious maker of beautiful headwear. Her days were filled with the rustle of fabrics and the gentle hum of her needle, and she often felt herself a little too ordinary, a little too tucked away from the world's grand adventures. But even in the most modest of lives, destiny often waits, just around the corner. One afternoon, while running an errand, Sophie found herself amidst a bustling street, where soldiers marched with a somewhat unsettling seriousness. It was there that she first glimpsed something truly extraordinary. A handsome, golden-haired figure floated down from the sky, accompanied by an air of effortless grace. This was Howl, the enigmatic wizard whose magnificent moving castle was rumored to wander the countryside. Their paths crossed for but a moment, as Howl gently swept Sophie away from a pair of overly bold soldiers, carrying her briefly above the rooftops before setting her down safely, his eyes sparkling with a fleeting, knowing amusement. Later that evening, back in the quiet sanctuary of her hat shop, a most unexpected visitor arrived. It was the Witch of the Waste, a powerful sorceress who had once held great influence, though now her fame was shadowed by a somewhat sinister reputation. Without a word of warning, driven by a deep, dark jealousy she felt towards Howl, the witch cast a powerful spell upon Sophie. In an instant, Sophie found herself transformed, not into an elegant old lady, but one frail and burdened by age, her youthful form replaced by wrinkled skin and a weary stride. Sophie, though surprised and a little dismayed by this sudden change, bore her new appearance with a surprising calm. She understood that she could no longer remain in the hat shop, lest her family worry. And so, with a quiet resolve, she gathered her things and set out into the world, an old woman seeking a new beginning, and perhaps a way to break the curse. Her journey led her through fields and over gentle hills, until she stumbled upon a most peculiar sight. A scarecrow, stuck headfirst in a bush. With a kind heart, Sophie freed him. He stood upright, his turnip head quite charming, and though he couldn't speak, he showed a profound gratitude, beginning to follow her, bobbing along like a silent, friendly companion. Sophie affectionately named him Turnip Head. It was Turnip Head who eventually guided her to the most wondrous and curious sight imaginable, Howl's moving castle. It was a fantastical contraption of metal and wood, gears and chimneys, huffing and puffing its way across the landscape. With a deep breath, Sophie climbed aboard, letting herself in as if she belonged there. Inside, the castle was a fascinating tangle of clutter and charm. She found a young boy named Markle, Howl's apprentice, who eyed her with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. And there, at the heart of the castle, was Calcifer, a delightful little fire demon, a flickering spirit bound by a contract to keep the castle moving and warm. Calcifer, whose cheerful flames danced in the hearth, sensed Sophie's magic and, in a hushed whisper, offered her a secret pact. If she could break his contract with Howl, he would break her curse. Sophie, ever practical, immediately set about tidying the castle, much to Markle's initial dismay and Calcifer's amused observation. She declared herself the new cleaning lady and for a time she lived among them, an old woman whose spirit was steadily rekindled by her purpose. She discovered that the castle's magical door could open to different landscapes depending on how a dial was set, sometimes a bustling city, sometimes a serene lakeside, and sometimes the quiet hills near her old home. Howl himself was a captivating presence. He was elegant, sometimes vain, and always a bit of a mystery. Sophie quickly learned of his deep-seated fear of unpleasantness, particularly of being drafted into the escalating war that was rumbling on the horizon. This war, a distant conflict between two kingdoms, began to cast a lengthening shadow over their peaceful, nomadic life. Massive bird-like airships, both beautiful and ominous, started to traverse the skies. One morning, Howl, preparing for a royal summons to fight in the war, had a terrible mishap with his hair dye. He believed he had been ruined, dissolving into a dramatic puddle of green slime, a display of his deep-seated insecurities. Sophie, despite her exasperation, tended to him with a gentle firmness, a surprising tenderness growing between them amidst the chaos. As the war intensified, Howl would often disappear, transforming into a magnificent, feathered creature, part bird, part beast, to secretly intervene, protecting the innocent from the falling bombs and the destructive magic of the conflict. Each time he returned, he was more tired, more burdened by the darkness of war, slowly losing a part of himself. Sophie, determined to find a way to break her curse and Calcifer's contract, began to delve deeper into Howl's world. She even visited her younger sister, Letty, in the guise of her own grandmother, to discreetly gather information about the wizard. The king eventually summoned Howl to the capital. Fearing for Howl's safety and hoping to protect him from the war's demands, Sophie bravely decided to impersonate Howl's mother, Mrs. Pendragon, to attend the meeting in his stead. To her surprise, the Witch of the Waste, now much frailer and diminished by her own magic, insisted on coming along. At the palace they met Madame Suliman, the king's formidable sorceress, a woman of immense power and cold logic. Suliman, sensing the Witch of the Waste's lingering, dark magic, swiftly stripped her of her powers, leaving her a bewildered, harmless old woman. It was a quiet but profound moment, transforming a once fearsome adversary into a figure of gentle pity. Madame Suliman then revealed her intentions for Howl. She wished him to use his powerful magic to serve the war effort, a path Howl vehemently resisted. Just as Sophie found herself in a precarious situation, Howl arrived, not as a valiant knight, but with his usual flair for the dramatic, using a clever disguise to rescue her. He engaged in a graceful, silent duel of magic with Suliman's guards, his spells manifesting as playful spirits rather than destructive forces. He swiftly whisked Sophie, Markle, Calcifer, who was present as a magical ring, and the now frail Witch of the Waste away from the palace and back to the castle. With the war now threatening their very existence, Howl moved the castle to a secret, peaceful spot, rebuilding it on the very site of Sophie's old hat shop, creating a haven. Their household grew, now including the gentle, harmless Witch of the Waste, who had become a sweet, if slightly confused, presence. Even Turnip Head found a permanent place in their quiet, flying home. As the days turned into weeks, the war's fury escalated. Howl continued his desperate fight, transforming more frequently into his bird-like form to protect others. But each transformation brought him closer to losing his humanity entirely. Sophie watched, her heart aching, understanding the depth of his sacrifice. Her feelings for him had blossomed into a profound, protective love. She knew she had to save him. During a brutal air raid, Suleiman's forces finally found their hidden home. The castle was violently shaken and torn apart. In the chaos, Sophie, desperate to keep Howl safe, followed his vanishing form. She clutched at the magical charm he wore around his neck, the charm that held his very heart, unknowingly separating it from him. Calcifer, the fire demon, was dislodged from the castle's hearth, flickering weakly, his life force fading. With the dying Calcifer cradled gently in her arms, Sophie ran, guided by the faithful turnip head, who led her to a secret, shimmering portal. Stepping through, Sophie found herself transported not to another place, but to another time. She witnessed a younger Howl, a lonely young wizard, catching a falling star, Calcifer, just as it was about to die. In a desperate act of compassion, Howl had given Calcifer his own heart, binding them together in a powerful, dangerous contract. Sophie understood everything now. Returning to the present, she found Howl in his bird-like form, weak and near death, surrounded by the remnants of the battle. With trembling hands, Sophie gently placed Calcifer, the precious glowing heart, back into Howl's chest. As the heart returned to its rightful owner, a cascade of magic swept through them all. Howl awakened, no longer burdened by his monstrous form, but looking a little weary, a little vulnerable, and entirely himself. Calcifer, now freed from his contract, chose to stay, a happy, independent fire demon. And Sophie's own curse, the one that had made her an old woman, dissolved almost completely, leaving her youthful once more, though she still carried a few wisps of her old woman charm when her confidence wavered. Even Turnip Head was transformed, his curse breaking to reveal a handsome prince, Prince Justin, from the warring kingdom. He promised to return to his people and put an end to the senseless conflict, and so, with their curses lifted and their hearts open, Howl and Sophie finally spoke of their deep affection. Howl, with a playful smile, asked her if she would like to live with him. Their castle, no longer tied to the ground, took to the skies once more, a magnificent, vibrant home soaring above the peaceful clouds. The war began to fade, replaced by the promise of peace, and in their beautiful flying castle, Howl, Sophie, Markle, Calcifer, and even the quiet witch of the waste lived together, a most peculiar and loving family. The air was filled with the gentle hum of the castle, the soft glow of Calcifer's fire, and the quiet contentment of lives truly, wonderfully intertwined. And now, dear one, let that same feeling of peace and contentment settle over you. All is well in their world, and all is well in yours. Sleep now, dream of flying castles and kind hearts.